What is going on, guys? It is MurderInc here, back with another champion spotlight video. Today we're going to be talking about Oboro. She is an epic attack-based champion from the brand new Shadowkin faction. Hopefully by the end of this video you'll be able to see where you can use her in progression if you have pulled this champion, or just learn everything you need to know about her and the synergies she can offer in this game. So let's start out by moving on and talking about her aesthetics. Alright, so as we can see here, and in my personal opinion, this champion Oboro really grasps the essence of Shadowkin. She's an amazing model. Her hat looks fantastic. She has 3 masks on top. She has horns. Part of the horns have been broken, so obviously she's a war-torn character. She has 2 weapons that we can see with a really nice glow to them, and a 3rd weapon still sheathed on her waistband. So like I just said, I think her model perfectly represents the Shadowkin faction, and they did an amazing job with this. Now what we're going to do is we're going to head and take a look at what her skills do and what her animations look like, and I promise you, you will not be disappointed. Alright, so the first thing we can see here is the increased ally attack on dungeons by 33%. That's definitely going to help out a lot if you do need an attack aura, because it is a significant increase to attack. Now first let's talk about her A1 spreading chaos attacks one enemy, having a 40% chance of placing that 60% defense down debuff for 2 turns. Will attack all enemies instead if the target is under 4 or more debuffs. That's a rather harsh condition. Unless you're doing something where you're applying poisons to it, it's really hard to kind of manage 4 debuffs. I'm really thinking about arena here for PvE content like dungeons, wave clearing. It's possible, but once again, just think about 4 debuffs in your head, making sure they're applied before she actually gets a turn. So let's go ahead and take a look at what her A1 looks like. Okay, so here it almost looks like she's throwing some type of shuriken at the target. I'm not really sure what it is. Maybe she's just throwing one of her blades, but I think it's a nice addition as opposed to the kind of hack and slash we've seen from all the previous champions I've currently covered in these spotlights. Moving on to the A2 Mystic Smoke. This is a 3-turn cooldown, attacks one enemy 2 times. The second hit has a 75% chance of transferring all debuffs from this champion to the target. First hit has a 75% chance of stealing all buffs from the target when attacking under a Veil or Perfect Veil buff. Let's go ahead and take a look at what Mystic Smoke looks like. Okay, so this is the ability that kind of goes back to that hack and slash, a really quick lounge forward and precise hit to the enemy. I definitely like it. It is new from what we've seen so far. There are definitely a few Shadowkin we've already gone over that do have a similar effect for their abilities. Moving on to the A3, which is going to be my personal favorite as far as what the animation looks like, because it is brand new. Ninja Art. This is a 3-turn cooldown, placing a 30% increased crit rate and increased crit damage buff on this champion for 2 turns, then attacks one enemy. Places a perfect veil buff on this champion for 2 turns if this attack is critical. So let's go ahead and take a look at what Ninja Arts looks like. Okay, so this is the ability I was talking about. I don't even know what she's doing. She's doing 2 forward slashes with her weapon. It's emitting a shockwave that you can clearly see on the ground. Really happy with this, and this is a really cool ability. Now, a lot of you might be noticing the Revive on Death on her. This goes along with her passive Vanish. Places a Revive on Death buff on this champion for 3 turns whenever they receive a Veil or Perfect Veil buff, and since she is self-applying it, she's also getting a 3-turn Revive on Death, which is going to make this champion very strong and lots of content moving forward. So the first thing I thought to myself when I did see this kit is, okay, she does a lot of damage, as we can already see here, especially if you compare this to other champions. We're doing numbers like this from the legendaries that I have showed previously, and the question is going to be, is it going to be worth building accuracy for the steal buff? The overall feel that I did get after testing this is you definitely want this champion fast. Revive on Death is going to be very strong for her, and she hits way too hard to ignore. So with that being said, I elected to personally, with this champion, not build as much accuracy, because as most people know, hybrid builds are very hard to pull off. So let's go ahead and go to my gearing recommendations, where I can suggest to you the build that I went with, and you can determine which build is going to fit best for you in your progression if you do have this champion. Alright guys, so based on everything I did just go over, We're going to talk about the gearing now. I do want to go with a higher speed damage dealing build. With that being said, I would recommend attack on the banner as well as speed and attack percentage. Now, the only thing that's going to be different from this champion spotlight gearing section from others is when I say speed, there's going to be a heavy emphasis on speed. You want to make sure you have 1 or 2 speed rolls first, then go with any other stat that I do in fact recommend. So with that being said, something to look for in a banner as a perfect example would be an attack banner with maybe a 1 attack roll and 2 speed rolls, or 2 speed rolls, 0 attack rolls, and kind of just filling out those extra stats. The next piece we're going to talk about is going to be the necklace. Now the necklace is going to be crit damage with attack. If you want to throw in some accuracy to raise your chances of actually debuffing the target, you can absolutely do that. Moving on to the ring, I do recommend an attack ring with attack percent. Going over the boots, it's fairly obvious what I'm going to recommend for the boots. It's going to be speed with attack percent, crit rate, and crit damage. For the chest piece, it's going to be the exact same. I do recommend attack percent with crit rate and crit damage, and speed once again being the highest priority there. For gloves, you can either run crit rate gloves with crit damage and speed, or crit damage gloves with crit rate, focusing a little bit more on crit rate on the gloves than speed, because you want to make sure you have 100% crit at all times. Moving on to the weapon, helmet, and shield, you want to make sure you have speed and crit rate or speed and crit damage, kind of filling out what this champion's missing. All of that is in fact going to come down to what you elected to choose for your gloves on your gearing. So definitely keep that in mind and maybe gear your champion in the order I just told you as far as the gear slots go. Alright guys, now that we've gone over that, let's go over the masteries here. The masteries I would recommend for Oboro are going to be the typical damage dealing one-shot build masteries. We do have Helm Smasher here, and we also have the ability to counterattack because she does an incredible amount of damage. So even if she does get hit, she does have Revive on Death, so she's applying to herself fairly often. So any chance she doesn't die and she does get a chance to counterattack, that single hit A1 is going to do a massive amount of damage. Alright, the next thing I want to talk about here is going to be the base statistics for Oboro. We have 15,360 health, 1,454 attack, 826 defense, which is definitely on the lower side, 101 speed, and I've liked this theme across all of the shadowkins so far. The speed is very high, it's either 100 or higher, which is really good for the game, especially if you're struggling with speed. We have 15% crit rate, 60% crit damage, so 3% lower than the normal highest crit damage threshold, 30 resistance, and 0 accuracy. And moving on to how I built this champion, as we can see here, I just have 1 cruel set bonus. The rest are kind of mix and matching pieces, so I could really find the perfect stats for Oboro. We have 30,000 health, 5.8 thousand attack, 1.8 thousand defense, 215 speed, 103 crit rate, 256 crit damage, and the resistance and accuracy were not built on this champion at all. So now before I move on from the screen, I do kind of want to talk to you on why I elected not to go with accuracy. There's definitely lots of synergy, but it's very niche for accuracy. Stealing buffs, having to do the certain conditions of attacking under that veil or perfect veil buff. This would mean that there's a lot of cycling going on with Ninja Arts, the A3 ability, having that veil buff up, it not getting stripped by any opponent in the arena or in normal dungeons here. So I didn't want to take that risk where it didn't have the perfect veil buff on, the accuracy would not be of use at all, which is why I elected to completely avoid it. Now, if you can find a certain situation that's going to be perfect for your account, where you can always take advantage of stealing the buffs there for any encounter you can think of, definitely go with accuracy. Kind of replace that on the damage side, so she's doing a little bit less damage, but she has the ability of stealing those crucial buffs. Now with that being said, let's go ahead and take her into a spin in some content. Alright guys, so the first place I am going to be showing Oboro in this video is going to be Dragon Stage 20. We have Yoshi as the leader, we have Genzen as well. If you're not too familiar with what these two champions do, I did make a fragment champion guide on Yoshi, and I also recently released a Genzen champion spotlight as well, so you can kind of get to know their kits if you are interested. Outside of those two champions, we have Oboro obviously as the highlight of this video, and finally Lydia. So let's go ahead and see what these four champions can do, really highlighting on what Oboro has to offer this team. Alright guys, so let's take a look at this dragon run. We are going to run this on 2x speed. The biggest comparison we're looking for here is going to be the difference between Genzen and Oboro. Now Genzen is an awesome AoE damage dealer who also has very hard hitting single target abilities. However, Oboro is more focused on that single target damage where she's really going to shine here. And one thing to consider is Genzen is also the weak affinity or stage 20 of Dragon. However, I am going to be keeping track of the weak hits, and you definitely can as well. Haven't seen any so far, which is the good news, but it is something I do want to look at, because the point here is going to be comparing single target to AoE and how both of these champions can do. So there's that Revive on Death ability, and she does hit amazingly hard. It's really great to see and it's fun to watch there, and I still actually haven't seen any weak hits, so this actually is going to be a fairly good test between the two champions. It's really going to come down to the Dragon here, however, because Oboro is definitely going to be favored here on the single target side, where Genzen really pops off during the wave clear portion of this dungeon. Now, kind of to my point before, even if this ability does in fact kill Oboro, she does still have one remaining charge of that Revive on Death, and we did just see a weak hit there, but to my earlier point, what we're really focusing on is making sure Genzen didn't weak hit on the original waves, and Oboro really gets to shine with the single target here. So this is kind of the reason why all champions can just have the best gear in the game stacked on them, and they're going to do a fantastic job. However, with champions like Oboro, you do get that added bonus that's already in her kit of the Revive on Death. As you can see here, she's one hit away from dying. So any other champion not having Reviver, like I don't have a Reviver here, that would be pretty much game over for this champion. However, she is going to revive even after the Dragon gets a turn here, simply because she self-applies this Revive on Death ability. So all of these things coming together is going to lead up, making her such a strong glass cannon single target damage dealer. So as you can see here, Oboro did 1.9 million damage compared to Genzen, who did 933,000. Once again, I do know he is weak affinity, but he did hit so hard that I wanted to use a new champion to compare with Oboro just to see how far off the two damage disparities is. Another factor that I have to consider as well is going to be the fact that Genzen also died early, so these numbers should be a little bit closer, but it's still really impressive to see Oboro doing so much damage on her own in this fight. So now that we've gone over dungeons, the next place I do want to talk about is going to be the arena. Now for the arena, we don't have Oboro in immunity gear while the rest of our champions are, so I'm going to use CV here against this extremely tanky team. Let's just see how this goes. I'm not really sure what's going to happen, but who knows. Alright, so my Kymar is the fastest on the map right now, so we're going to start off with this A2 ability here, and it was double resisted. Now let's go ahead and use this A2 to make sure Oboro is in fact protected here. Now we're going to hopefully strip the buffs. Yes, we were able to strip the buffs on anyone, and this is where we're really going to see the Perfect Veil and Revive on Death shine. The first target we're probably going to take out is going to be a Mountain King. Is going to be an issue, but so is Krisk. I'm pretty sure we have the damage to kill Krisk through his ally protection, so let's go ahead and get rid of Mountain King straight off the bat, doing 105,000 damage. Not a worry here. The next target we're probably going to aim for is going to be Valkyrie here. Let's go ahead and take off this ally protection buff. Maybe I should have kept that on, I really wasn't thinking there. Let's go ahead and kill Valkyrie. 75,000 with a defense stacked Valkyrie. Now we can kind of throw this on auto and just watch Oboro use the rest of her abilities, being that A1 and A2. I wonder, okay, so she is going to use that A1 against Tormund, finish him off. She didn't even get the second hit in. As we could expect, she does a massive amount of damage. Now, is she going to die? She's actually going to counterattack, very interesting. And we have the Vokon here. And she's still somehow hanging in there. You love to see it. This is why I think she's going to be great as a single target champion in the arena. Even though she did just die there, we do have the revive there, her turn meter is going to fill, and finally she's going to finish off Krisk by herself. So AoE champions will always be the kings of arena. However, if you want to use a similar comp to how I'm using, where you can constantly cycle through the abilities, you can CC the team, Oboro is going to be a very good asset for you, even though she isn't stealing any buffs from the team since she's not running accuracy. Now that we've gone over kind of a tanky team, let's see how we do against possibly a fast team. This team is in fact using Yoshi, so it's going to be cool to see here. There is a True Fear that landed there. I was not expecting Harvest Jack to in fact be that quick. So even though we did just apply block debuff by CV, the damage was already done, the True Fear is still on, so we're pretty much just going to be gambling here and hoping that this applies. Although Sifi did just cleanse the buff with the passive, so actually, never mind. There we were, we have the Revive on Death now, everything's going well. Let's go ahead and cycle through these abilities here, making sure that the defense down is in fact applied, and let's see who Oboro targets next. So we did 149,002 Genzin. Feels good. I love seeing the high numbers, and once again, Yoshi is going to be very interesting in the arena. As you can see, decreased accuracy is on Oboro. So if I were stacking accuracy on this champion, this buff alone probably would have made all of those stats useless, simply for the fact of how much accuracy is reduced, how much resistance teams usually run, how much you get from the Great Hall, base stats, so on and so forth. So all of those things together really is just another reason on top of the ones I've already given you why I elected to build her with full damage, take advantage of her Revive on Death, and simply build her to one-shot your enemy. So outside of Arena and Dungeons, Faction War, she's definitely going to have a strong presence there. With the Revive on Death, everybody knows to get 3 stars, everyone has to be alive. The fact that she's constantly cycling that Revive on Death and placing that perfect Veil buff on herself is going to be very strong in progression once these crypts do release. As far as Clan Boss goes, if you wanted to build her with some accuracy, so she's stealing the attack up from affinities, her being a Void champion is going to be very good there. I would probably recommend you using her in some type of speed team or a counterattack team, since you can get some benefit from that defense down. But those are all things to consider if you do plan on using her in the clan boss. Alright guys, that is going to conclude my video today on Oboro. Let me know what you guys think. This is the only kind of Void quality champion that is epic or above. We didn't get a legendary, which was unfortunate. I was expecting some type of legendary champion to be released, but this is the highest quality Void that's currently available. Let me know what you guys think. I think she has amazing animations. I think her kit's great. Give me your feedback. Where would you use her that I hadn't already mentioned here? And what do you guys think overall about this Shadowkin faction? As always, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and I will see you all in my next upload.